Hi, I'm Jim Burgess. This is part 2 in our Nature of Healing series, and this particular part is about our roadmap to health and well-being. And this is a continuation of part 1, A Story of Creation. So if you haven't seen that video, watch it, and if not, we're going to review that in the beginning of this so that we can keep going down the road to healing. All right, let's go. So just to recap a story of creation real quickly. And first there was Source, the source of all that is. Some call it God in the etheric realms, the creation of everything. And creation is up there thinking, I'd like to expand myself and grow, and I want to do it with love, the most powerful force in the universe. So it says, how can I do that? And it decided it would split itself into two opposite polarities, one being more positive and one being more negative. And those two polarities would then, when they could be brought back together, first they would separate, but when they could be brought back together with the unifying agent of love, they would create a fusion or a fission and be more energy than they were, which would be the fuel to fuel the expansion of the universe. So creation created Mother God and Father God, those two polarity representations of that. But they were still in the etheric, and creation wasn't happy enough. It wanted to know itself more, so it decided to create something more dense, and it created planet Earth, or a 3D reality, so that then these etheric energies could become more solidified, if you will, so that then the third dimension would be the way for the spiritual world to see itself in form. And so as humans started being born, we noticed that some of their bodies were thicker and some of them were thinner. And so those thicker ones had more strength, more courage, more determination, more force, and the thinner ones were more clever. They had to kind of chuck and jive their way through things. They couldn't bull their way through. So eventually these patterns on Earth started to be called yin and yang, that are referenced in Chinese medicine, which were modifiers of the body and the personality. We began to notice that each of these body types came from a specific side of the family. The thicker ones, more muscular ones, came from the father's side, and the taller ones and the thinner ones came from the mother's side. And so, as we looked at that family dynamic, we realized that there were 12 grandparents, which meant that as the mother and father started to have kids, they would have 6 brothers and 6 sisters, which would be a corresponding social experience of the grandparent. And that's where it got a little strange and weird, and then we could see that in the eyes. But we're going to take off from here, and I want to show you that map of the family tree, tie that into the eyes, and show you how our ancestors are connected to our bodies. And so, let's first look at our map. And first we have our mother and our father. Everybody has one of those, whether you knew them or not. And each one of our parents came from parents, our grandparents. So we can see that the number 1 girl on the father's side and the number 2 grandfather, and we can see the same pairing on the other side. And so each one of our grandparents had parents, and those are our great-grandparents, but our father's father's parents and our father's mother's parents, and those sides all corresponded. So these are going to come into play later, and these numbers are also important because they have all to do with our maps, the numerology, their sphere of influence. They have all kinds of connotations. So we're starting to develop our map here, recognizing that as your mother and father started to have children, and let's pretend they had, doesn't matter how many they had, we work with 6 positions because each of the 6 brothers and each of the 6 sisters has a corresponding grandparent, which covers all the bases of the human condition. So that's why the 12-step program. So remember, when we're born into a birth order position, we have all the other 11, and what we're trying to do on Earth is to practice. If we're born as a number 3 boy, we want to practice the other 11 of them, of their personality types, their lessons, their characters, so that we can integrate their qualities and become more solidified, unified, whole, and integrated from the inside, which is the definition of healing, to become more whole. So when the soul came here and it chose its parents, it had an itinerary, things it wanted to learn and experience and grow from. Well, what happens if we don't do our homework, or we skip school, or we're a little negligent? Well, ultimately what happens is we have pain. And we have pain because we're not getting the lesson. We're not engaging in life. So pain is actually our teacher. And if we look at the specific aspects of pain, we can start to learn from it. First, let's look at the age that a disease or an illness happens. The specific age is broken up. Our life is broken up into a 64-year cycle, corresponds with I Ching too. So this 64-year cycle is broken up into 4 16-year categories, and every 5 1/3 years you access different aspects of your ancestors. And when your ancestors have major unresolved trauma and healing, and it lines up with yours, you get an owie in a specific place, or a disease, or a condition, so things are playing themselves out. It happened on purpose, right? Not an accident at all. So we can look at the age, we can look at the grandparents, and we can start to then look at their qualities and their lessons, look at their birth order positions, which is how we learn it on Earth, and we can start to engage consciously. Next, we want to look at, where did it occur on the body? So is it a broken leg? Is it a rib? Is it a scrape? Is it, what is it? Is it cancer in a certain part? Where is it? The thing I love about this map is that almost every square inch of our body is a grid, so that we can start to figure out why things are happening. I even like interpreting ink and tattoos that people get on their bodies, because the pictures always go in the image in a certain place that has a grandparent quality, and when they tell you the meaning of the image, it'll always tie directly into the quality of that grandparent. Works every time. It's amazing. So things aren't as random as you might think. They're happening for reasons and on purpose. Also notice on this map how your elbows and your knees are marriages of grandparents. So you think of all the joint problems we're having. Gee, I wonder if they had to do with the quality of the marriage in your family lineage. Absolutely. Then we can look at, are there specific organs that are being affected? And so those organs, once again, tie into Chinese medicine, ties into, everybody knows about the liver and anger, and the lungs and bonding and sadness, and the pancreas, and breaks down sugar and is about assimilating the sweetness in life, and has to do with jealousy. It goes on and on and on. So then we can look at the glands, the glandular system, and we have problems in our lymph and problems in our immune system. So we can go into the glands and see what's happening there. And then ultimately, where we're going to go is that next phase, which has to take us into the eyes. Once again, the specific location of the structural components that we'll look at in the next slide, their location means a lot. Not only in the birth order positions and the grandparents, but we have 2 maps that we use to understand not only the physical body, the map on the top, and our map of the behavioral body at the bottom. And we can begin to see how the physical qualities, say in the right eye and the lateral portion at about 3 o'clock, when we look at the lungs and the thorax, ties into the heart and nurturing, heart and lungs, bonding, trust. This is where issues of rejection and abandonment and loneliness are. We can go into the reproductive and see our sexuality. We can go over into the voice and the thyroid and the esophagus and the throat, and we can find our inner truth. So everything is corresponding, everything is connected, the true nature of a holistic model. So then if we want to get even more specific, what we can begin to see is the actual structural components are going to tie into our feelings. Oh, I said the F word. So we can see that the dotted pigmentations stimulate the mind, create our self-images. We can see that the rounded openings or the lacuna stimulate the emotional body and the heart, have to do with the feminine. We can also see that the neurogenic fibers or the connective tissue have to do with empathy and sensitivity, the caring for others, physical body sensations. When we go to the more spiritual or unseen side, we can first look at the fears in Mother, Father, God, which are the pupil. You remember the eyes are the windows to the soul? Well, the soul is the pupil. And remember that the first, after the polarities that God created Mother, Father, God, the masculine and the feminine, the animas and the anima, that those two Mother, Father, Gods, they actually have fears too. Ooh, did we say that part of God has fear? It's like, well, is there anything God didn't create? No. Well, then his answer is yes. And so it's like, so what? If we have fears, that's why we have love, so we can transmute it and transform it. So now we have all of these roadmaps and all these different ways we can look at this, and now we can start to get to the bottom line. How are we feeling? And now we have 5 experiences of feeling. And so we can look at our body sensations that are tied into the fibers. We can look at the feminine and the emotions that are tied into the lacuna in the eyes. We can look at the masculine side of the thinking and analytical tied into the sora in the eyes. We can look into the pupil, a little harder to see this one, but that's where the fears of Mother, Father, God are in those more spiritual and humanitarian experiences. Those are tough ones when you get into feel those. And that's Mother, Father, God fears. And then when we tap into and we move through our fears and are connected to the source of creation, then we have these powerful inner strength and clarity and love and belonging and oneness and nourishment and these wonderful qualities that you can actually consciously experience in your body. And so we can now use our accidents, our illness, our pain, and our suffering. And since misery loves company, we chose our families, and we all have similar pain. Why aren't we healing together? Why aren't we healing in our families? Well, here at the Institute for Family Healing, that's exactly what we're doing. We look forward to seeing you. Reach out, contact us. You can have a free call and a consultation, and you're welcome to peruse our websites. Thank you for your time, and we'll keep an eye out for you.